Hello, and welcome back to another Pirkei Avot text explication with your host, me, Rabbi Drew. We are now on the 7th text in the 5th chapter, and we have seen so far in the first 6 texts, the number 10 is really the big number, the operating sort of principle, as it were, and also a lot of things relating both to biblical items as well as, or biblical stories, as well as things related to the temple. We are now transitioning to the number 7. Okay, the number 7 now for the next couple of texts are going to be sort of the operating number. Now, just as we have seen though throughout so far this 5th chapter, is that there are no names attached to these texts. In fact, I think there are a handful of named statements in the back of the chapter, but this chapter really is dominated by anonymous statements. Okay, so I mentioned the number 7. Here we go. Shiva Devarim Bagolem V'Shiva B'Chacham. There are 7 characteristics. There are 7 things that we could say about this is really interesting. The word in Hebrew is golem, kind of like the golem the famous golem of the Maharal of Prague. But this is more of like sort of like an idiot, right? But you also have Shiva B'Chacham. And there are 7 things that we could talk about a wise person. So a Chacham, now we're going to see 7 characteristics of a Chacham, of a wise person, and here they are. A wise person does not speak before someone who is greater than this person in wisdom, and it's interesting, in wisdom uveminyan, and counting. Okay, and counting. What does that mean, counting? A little unclear. I would suspect it's talking about age, so both someone who is wiser than this person in both wisdom and age. They don't interrupt their friend's speech. Okay, so the other person's talking, you don't interrupt. That is a sign of a wise person. They're not interrupting. Number 3, they're not hasty to answer, right? They answer sort of in a timely fashion. They're not super quick to sort of, not even just interrupting, but just like super quick. That's an interesting one. Shoel ka'inim meshim kahalacha. They ask what is relevant and answers to the point. Okay, so it's very direct. They, both in the asking and in their responses, they're very succinct and to the point. They stay on topic, as it were. V'omer al rishon v'acharon acharon. So they speak about, or perhaps even ask about, what is first, and they answer what is last. So they stay in order. Very orderly, you can see. Va'alma shelo shama omer lo shamati. And about something that they have not heard, they actually admit, I haven't heard about this. Or maybe they don't know, right? They don't try to say as something they haven't heard. They don't try to say, oh, I know it's such and such, when in truth they really don't know, right? This is something that is, they are honest about their lack of having heard something, maybe even knowledge. They're honest about this. And they don't try to pretend that they know something that they don't. Umoda al ha'emet. The 7th one is, and they admit to what is true. They acknowledge the truth. Okay, they acknowledge the truth. Okay, these 7 things. And then the text ends, v'chilu fehem bagolem. And the opposites are true with this sort of, this golem person, but this sort of, it's not even just an idiot. It's someone really who is, the translation I have in front of me is a clod, but I would say someone sort of an uncultured person. It's not only the opposite of someone who is wise, I wouldn't even play it off as a wise person versus an idiot. That would be too easy of an opposite. I really would say it as someone who is a wise person and one who is perhaps uncultured. Okay, so if we were to think about what are the opposites, so they do speak in front of someone who is wiser and perhaps older than this person. That's number 1. 2 is they do interrupt their fellow person. Number 3, they are hasty to answer. Number 4 is they, instead of asking about a certain matter and responding and accordingly, they don't. They're just sort of all over. Number 5, instead of talking about what is first and last, they actually mix it all up. They're out of order. Number 6, something they haven't heard, they say I haven't heard. Here, this golem person would actually say, even though they haven't heard about this topic, they would speak anyways as if they had heard about it. And then finally, instead of acknowledging the truth, they might not be willing to acknowledge the truth. So that would be the converse here of a wise person. So these 7 characteristics, and as we see, these are not 7 characteristics that have anything, as we've seen in the first 6 texts, that have anything to do biblically or with the temple. These are just characteristics of people, and not just simply characteristics of people as if this is something that people do. All 7 of these things are specifically with regards to conversation, right? So interpersonal conversation. How does someone come across when they're talking or conversing with someone else? So all 7 of these characteristics, which sort of, are everlasting, right? We can see these in our time as well. That someone who is orderly can respond appropriately, we would say they're certainly wise. All right. Thank you so much for watching.